Hey guys, Toast here. Today I want to talk a bit about Battlefield 1 and its potential longevity as a multiplayer game. Now generally speaking, modern day first-person shooter developers attempt to create games with a multiplayer component that will keep players coming back for the full lifetime of the game, which optimally is at least until the next game in the series releases. For some games like Call of Duty, that means that every game needs to last at least 1 year since they have 3 different development companies working on the game, so they have the resources to pump out a new game every 12 months. Whether that's to their benefit quality-wise is a topic for another day. Battlefield, on the other hand, tends to have a multi-year development cycle since, save for Battlefield Hardline, which was developed by Visceral Games, all other major Battlefield entries have been developed by DICE. Now we know that DICE is due to release a game later this year, which has been strongly suggested to be the follow-up to their 2015 Star Wars Battlefront title, so as of the time of this video, it's anticipated that we won't see another major Battlefield series entry until late 2018 at the earliest. By that estimation, Battlefield 1 will need to keep the attention of Battlefield series players for a full 2-year period. But can Battlefield 1 do that? Well, if the lifespan of the last DICE-developed entry into the series is any indication, then the answer would presumably be yes. But unfortunately, it isn't that cut and dry. Battlefield 4 was the last Battlefield game to be developed by DICE prior to Battlefield 1, and to this day still has upwards of 5,000 to 25,000 players on each platform on any given day. For a 3-year-old first-person shooter that's been succeeded by both a direct successor as well as an offshoot of the series, that's a pretty solid number of daily players. Now, I believe that keeping players on a game for an extended period of time boils down to 2 important factors: rewards and variety. Let's put aside the aspect of overall mechanical quality of the game, since in my humble opinion, DICE has done a really solid job with Battlefield 1 right from release, which, as many of you probably remember, was not the case with Battlefield 4, with its horrendous netcode issues from launch. Though, to its credit, Battlefield 4 became a much improved version of itself after numerous patches. Essentially what I'm saying is that Battlefield 1's mechanical quality isn't an issue here. To the first point, rewards. Just about everything we do in life is for one of 2 reasons: for survival or for reward. In video games, very rarely, or at least I hope very rarely, are we worried about our own personal survival as we shoot other digital players with digital weapons. We are instead essentially looking for a way to reward ourselves during the activity in which we've chosen to spend our free time. That doesn't mean that one needs to be showered with in-game gifts and rewards at all times. Being rewarded can happen in a number of ways, from receiving actual in-game rewards like weapons and skins, to a sense of accomplishment for completing a difficult campaign, to even a sense of deification by being the master of your creations and destructions in a game like Minecraft. Rewards can come in many different forms, and it's the manner, frequency, and intensity in which they're presented to the players that triggers the satisfying feeling we get when we've been rewarded for our actions. Battlefield 1 rewards you during the first few dozen levels with new weapons at class level ups and war bonds at general level ups. Intermittently, you'll also receive battle packs that'll offer skins, XP boosts, and rare melee weapon puzzle pieces. While admittedly this works very well in the early game, once you've maxed out your level of all classes, which honestly doesn't take very long, and gotten enough war bonds to purchase everything you want, which again doesn't take very long, then you're left with only the battle pack system as a reward. Because battle packs are issued on a random basis and not in any way tied to your skill or how well you've done in any given game, you feel no real sense of progression or reward past the first 20 hours or so of multiplayer. Consider that dedicated Battlefield players can and have put multiple hundreds of hours into the online components of Battlefield games, and because of this, the current battle pack system as a means of long-term reward doesn't really hold up. There's no real reason to try and do well in a particular game, because once you've achieved level 10 for each class, your performance is never rewarded since you gain nothing of value at each general level up. I'd also like to note that progression is another form of reward in multiplayer games, but because you receive all but 1 weapon per class by class level 3, the progression from that point on is pretty much non-existent. That's not to say that rewards need to be given out all the time. Rewards can be given out less frequently if you have a great deal of variety in a game, as that at the very least encourages players to spend time with all the different options available. Battlefield 4, while having more long-term rewards, didn't have too many more forms of reward than Battlefield 1, but what it did have was incredible variety. There were tons of different weapons available to each class, many different gadgets, and a wide variety of attachments that, while not all having a major impact mechanically, at least made your weapon look different and unique. Battlefield 1 only has 6 base weapons for each class, with up to 3 variants for each one. While the variants can have some moderate levels of change on things like bolt-action rifles, where you can go from having a high-powered scope to iron sights, or like the MP18 where one variant is burst fire, most weapon variants offer only small changes that don't have enough of a significant mechanical difference from their counterparts to make them feel distinct. This wouldn't be as big an issue if there were plenty of attachments to be had on each of the variants, but in keeping with the limited technology of the World War I era, DICE chose to sacrifice the variability for an attempt at World War I era realism. Most weapons are only granted the options of magnification, a small handful of sight variations, and perhaps the choice of a bayonet or recoil direction. Even gadgets feel limited with only a handful of options available to each of the classes. Now again, I understand that this is a World War I game and that there's only so many liberties that could be taken when coming up with ideas for these things, but that's something that DICE chose to take on when they formed the idea for the game. I'm not saying that Battlefield 1 needs to have as many or more options than Battlefield 4, but it does feel like they need to have more than what they had initially offered. Now, this is obviously where DLC is supposed to come in and add more content and variety to the game, so I hope that they can introduce enough new content to make players feel like they have a lot of options, but we won't really know for sure until we see the contents of the first DLC pack, which comes in March. That's also a paid option which doesn't enhance the game for players who didn't purchase Premium and don't intend on purchasing the DLC. So with all that said, do I think Battlefield 1 will keep players entertained for a whole 2 years? Well, based on what we've seen with this game so far, no. Now that isn't to say that I don't enjoy the game or think that it's a good game. I play it multiple times per week and I really think it is overall a pretty solid game. But even after only a few short months of the game being available, I find myself feeling bored occasionally with the progression and rewards offered and long for new content. I really hope that DICE will deliver on future updates and find ways to keep the game fresh so that players can continue to enjoy it in the long run. But what do you think about the longevity of Battlefield 1? Do you think the game will hold players' attention for at least 2 years the way Battlefield 4 has done? Or do you think the game will fizzle out a bit more quickly? Let me know in the comments. If you liked the video, please leave a like, and if you want to see more content, please subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching, this is Toast, and I'll talk to you soon.